Hey folks, this is Kalani. I want to talk to you about a little shopping list. Now this shopping list is going to cover all the materials or ingredients you're going to need working on that armorsmithing, that leatherworking or that tailoring from 400 to 500. Now it's just over the horizon, literally we're a few days away, so last little stretch to get everything in order, everything in place so you can happily go about your crafting. Now first things first, we've got our base materials, or our common crafting materials. These are orichalcum ore, gossamer scrap and hardened leather section. Bear in mind everything is tier 6 because we'll be making exotics for the most of the time. You can make rares. Rares do give you experience, but it just takes you a ridiculous amount of rares to actually level up. So I'll be doing with exotics, and that's what this list will detail. So, common crafting materials. Bear in mind, obviously, that armorsmithing is the only one which will use orichalcum ore. Armorsmithing uses orichalcum ore and gossamer scraps, whereas both tailoring and leatherworking use both gossamer scraps and hardened leather sections. So, obviously, go for what you're going to need or what you require. You need tier 6. This is the tier 6 fine crafting materials such as Vial of Powerful Blood, Ancient Bone and Vicious Claw. Bear in mind you can substitute these with charged quartz crystals for the celestial recipes and carcass shells for the giver's recipes. Although, if you do not already have those recipes, dropping the gold on them may not be worth it. The last piece in the puzzle are globs of ectoplasm. These are incredibly annoying because they are RNG based. You need to salvage level 68 or higher, rares or exotics to have a chance for a glob of ectoplasm. Reportedly, using a better salvage kit does yield higher amounts of globs. So if you've got your Black Lion salvage kits handy and do not want to keep them for sigils, they may be worth using. A little honorary mention for the lodestones, which can help you get from 400 to 425. They won't really help you get much higher, but they can save you a little bit of trouble if you're struggling to get to 425. I would recommend not making any exotics until that point. So just a little mention, So I'm going to do this pretty quick because I assume most of you actually know what you're doing with Guild Wars 2, but I'll spell it out just for those who do not. So, orichalcum ore. Let's have a quick look-see at the map. You can mine orichalcum ore. There are several websites which can help you do so, such as go2nodes.com rather. I'll leave any websites that I mention in this little video in the description below. Hopefully I'll remember. So you can mine orichalcum in Frostgorge Sound. There's usually 2 nodes up there. Down in Southston Cove, there's usually 2 or 3 there. Malka's Leap usually has around 4. And then Cursed Shore also has around 4. Bear in mind they can change, they do not stay static, they do hop about, so make sure you check your website before heading out. You don't want to be running to the wrong location. Now, I just briefly did that because orichalcum is actually the only one you can mine, but we still need gossamer and hardened leather sections. So where do we get these from? Interestingly enough, you can get orichalcum from pretty much any weapon above level 68, I believe. I believe it's 68, that makes sense because it's with globs of ectoplasm, but literally anything which you would use orichalcum to craft, rather. For example, you use orichalcum in guns, swords, daggers, etc. You can basically get back from salvaging those items. Same with any heavy armour. Gossamer scraps are exactly the same, except for light armour. The only way to actually get this is to salvage light armour and get the gossamer scrap. Exactly the same for the leather, except for medium, obviously. Now, I want to skip over to the glob of ectoplasm because these are a little awkward. The best way, time efficiency wise, is through world bosses. Now you can see this fire elemental. This is one of the world bosses, and every time you kill a world boss for the first time each day, you'll get a chest, and you'll also be guaranteed a rare. Pretty much just flat out guaranteed a rare, meaning you got at least 1 guaranteed chance per world boss you complete to get a glob of ectoplasm. So that's really nice. The other way to do this is to go to the weapon and armor vendors for dungeons. Now you will obviously already need the dungeon tokens, so if you don't have any you'll need to run the dungeons first, but along with all the loot you get from the dungeon tokens allow you to buy gear. Now, from Citadel of Flame, Crucible of Eternity, Honor of the Waves, and Arar, you'll be able to purchase rares which have a chance for globs of ectoplasm. I can't really say it any other way. What's interesting is that because they're rares of a high enough level to get a glob, they're also high enough to get tier 6 common crafting materials, meaning that if you're short on gossamer, you should buy the light heads. If you're short on orichalcum, buy the heavy heads. Short on leather, buy the medium heads, and you've got a chance to sort your common crafting at the same time as your globs. Now, when it comes to tier 6 fine crafting materials, I'm afraid to say the best way to get your hands on these is actually champion loot farming. Now, head on over to Frostgorge Sounds. This is the best way. I know it's tedious, I know it's boring, but this is the fastest way to get tier 6. So head on up to Drakkar Waypoint, that's where it usually starts. You've got a fish, head around for another champion, another champion, another champion. You've got a troll champion down here and a brood mother champion down here. Guys, I know it's boring. I know, you can hear it in my voice. It's probably one of the most tedious things you can do in this game. So it sucks that it's probably the most efficient. Now, what you can get from champion loot bags are tier 6. Okay? Bear with me. You can get common crafting materials, and you can get gear anywhere from blue to exotic, meaning that if you get rares or exotics, you can salvage them for globs of ectoplasm. Anything else can still salvage into your common crafting materials. Literally, champion loot farming can get you all 3 things you require, which is why it's so damn frustrating. Gosh. Anyway, so champion loot farming is a buzz. The only other thing to consider is the Mystic Forge. Now, I know you may be saying, we don't like the Mystic Forge, and I'd completely agree with you, but bear with me. If we just go and have a look at some of these materials, they're the wrong materials. I don't have enough blood. I have enough bone. We'll use bone. Okay, so what you'll need is one of your tier 6, 50 of the tier 6's tier 5, so it needs to be exactly the same, so tier 6 bone needs tier 5 bone, and then comes the awkward part. You need 5 Crystalline Dust, which I do not have a great deal of, however we can supplement. Bear in mind, if you do need excess crystalline dust for this process and you have excess globs of ectoplasm, you can salvage globs of ectoplasm into crystalline dust. I should have really prepared that for the video, but never mind. Head on over to Miani, pick up some Philosophers Stones, and throw everything into the forge. So, tier 6 bone, tier 5 bone, 5 piles of crystalline dust, and your Philosopher's Stones. I already had plenty, who'd have known? So, what this will do is essentially turn your tier 6, turn your tier 5 and the dust into tier 6. One nice thing about this is that you don't actually need piles of crystalline dust for any of the exotic crafting, which means it's kind of the only tier 6 which you can actually do away with for this process. So I'll go ahead and forge. Got myself 5 ancient bones. That's not a brilliant kind of return, but at the end of the day, if you've got the materials, if you've got the dust, if you've got the tier 5 bones, it's usually worth it because you're spending skill points to upgrade them. So who knows, guys, who knows? That may be something you want to consider. Apart from that, I don't have anything else I can tell you. You can mine your orichalcum, you can salvage for all 3, you can champion loot farm, or just, if you really want to, go find a monster which drops your tier 6 and farm them to death. The only real worthwhile ones are probably blood in the snow trolls, if that's even still worth it. I don't think it is. Or the Skelk over on Southern Cove, which were nerfed several times. You can kind of see the pattern. Champion loot farming is still the best way to do it, which that still frustrates me, but that's the best way to get your tier 6. Ooh, one last thing. After playing about with that, if you have any laurels, over at the laurel vendor, you have a laurel vendor in pretty much every city, you can buy a tier 6 material bag, which contains 3 tier 6 materials for 1 laurel. So if you've got spare laurels, you can happily throw them at that as well. But apart from the Mystic Forge promotion, they're the only real ways to get your tier 6. Obviously, if you've got the celestial pieces and lots of charged quartz spare, that's a nice way to do it, or carcass shells the same. Get rid of the lodestones. Again, lodestones aren't really worth it past 425 in my personal opinion, but they may help you get there. Tier 6 we've talked about, and the common crafting materials we've talked about as well. So bear in mind, literally anything you salvage can give you the common tier 6, so champion loot farming is still probably the best way to do it after farming orichalcum. Also bear in mind, all of this can be bought. Quite literally, all of this can be bought with gold. So if you have spare gold, if you have other ways to make gold, if you'd rather do something else to make gold, go make your gold and just buy everything up straight. So yeah, that's all I can really say about the shopping list. I just wanted to get that out there in case any folks were struggling putting little pieces together, getting ready for the Ascended armor crafting. So thanks for watching folks, good luck and have fun, and as always, I will see you next time.